change is the only constant. It's a very old saying, and it helps understand that one thing which will not change is the change. It will always happen. And it couldn't be more true with regards to Canadian immigration. I mean, isn't it surprising that every day you wake up, every day you get up in the morning, and if you are interested in Canadian immigration and if you're an aspirant, then each day there is something new, there's something different. Either it's a rumor, either it's absolutely a new update, it's either a change. So for people like me, it's very exciting because I mean, if you're a content creator, means so much to create content with, and if you're a practitioner, then it can become quite tedious because each day you have to keep up to date with whatever is happening. So you tend to sort of sometimes miss some updates. But you as an aspirant, you as a person who is wishing to pursue their Canadian immigration journey, or you're in the middle of it, these kind of changes and updates can really make you anxious, frustrated at times, because the goalpost keeps changing. I mean, one day you're supposed to shoot here, and the next day the goalpost has moved there. The third day it's actually behind you, and the fourth day it's not even there. So that's what Canadian immigration has been looking like, at least for the last year or so, or more than a year or so. Actually, ever since this COVID has started, right? It's happening like this. The goalpost keeps moving. But in 2025, it seems it will continue. That goalpost will keep moving, will keep changing because of so many things that are happening. First thing that is happening is this is the election year. So, hey, we are going to get a new immigration minister at some point of time. It can happen as soon as April, or it could happen somewhere later this year. I do not know how that will transpire, but you know what, before we go on, we have to take this one. He says, I am on a work permit, it's expiring, I want to apply donkey, please tell the cheap rates. Well, you should know that if it's a donkey, then it's already cheap, right? It's the thoroughbreds, it's the horses which are expensive. So if you're already looking to get a donkey, then that should obviously be cheaper. But you're at the wrong screen, you're at the wrong page. This is not where the donkey processes are discussed. You probably will have to look into the black archives or the black lanes on the Instagram and TikToks. Probably that is where something you can find. Also, please bear in mind that for the donkey routes, for people who are looking for the donkey routes, you should know and understand that with the looming threat from the president-elect in the United States, the borders are now more robust. They are being patrolled in a better manner. More and more people are getting caught. And once you do get caught, pretty much it's the end of the story, end of the road for you. So therefore, please, before you take that option, before you take that route, before you think of going in that direction, please be very, very, very careful. Know exactly what you're doing, know what the risk is. And my suggestion, don't take it. Up to you. Okay, so completely lost share of my thought. Let's see. Okay, so changes, all the kind of changes that are going to be coming in 2025, that should continue. Lost chain of thought. Anyways, so let's start with our weekly roundup. We'll talk about whatever has happened or not happened as far as this week was concerned. But nothing much happened this week. First of all, let me start off by saying why. Because people were still in a pretty much of a holiday mood. This is still continuation of holidays after the Christmas, and the real work should start Monday onwards. And with that, I'm also hoping to see an express entry draw coming in the coming week. We haven't seen one in a bit of time now. So that is something which I am looking forward to. Every time an express entry draw happens, there is a change, right? There's a change in the pool, there's a change in the scores, there is a change in the people who get through, who don't get through. So a lot of changes within the express entry itself. But will they start with the category draws? Will they start with the CEC draws? Will they at least start? That is another big one that we are all anticipating. But let's start with our weekly roundup, and then we'll come back and round up and discuss all these aspects as well. This is the Canadian Immigration Weekly Roundup, and this is the first episode of 2025. So hurrah, thank you for joining me on this one. Please do stay up to date on the immigration news and trends by following us on Instagram and other platforms, and of course, subscribing to the YouTube channel as well. Okay, the PNP updates. What is happening in PNP? So Yukon, again, one of the provinces in Canada, right onto the northwestern side of Canada, pretty cold there in Yellowknife. And so the thing with Yukon is that they have an annual target. At least last year was about 400 quotas for their PNP. Why? Because the province is huge, but the number of people who live there is pretty small, and therefore, as you can imagine, it's slightly on the colder side of things. Even in Canada, it can get very cold in different parts of Canada. So on the colder side of things, and with the lower population, their quotas are quite small. And last year, they pretty much had to pause their program in April of 2024 because they just could not take any more applications. However, they have now announced that they are going to do a fixed intake based kind of an approach for their applications for 2025. These will be quarterly intakes. The first intake is supposed to start on the 29th of January, and each day, every day, the number of applications that they receive, they will be updating their application. For people who do not know about Yukon PNP, please note that this is an employer driven PNP program. Means you as an applicant is not the applicant. You do not make an application to Yukon. It's your employer who will be making an application on your behalf to Yukon by presenting specific documentation to establish why do they need a foreign worker. So that's the Yukon PNP. Of course, the employer has to be from Yukon, right? And this is a quarterly intake, a more sensible way of approaching this. Of course, that way they can align their intakes based on the amount of quota that they get assigned. As of right now, the PNPs do not have their quotas assigned to them. Probably will happen towards the end of this month or maybe early next, but that's when we'll come to know how individual provinces are faring in terms of their quotas. PNP draws did happen. Manitoba conducted a draw. Actually, because this is a weekly roundup, so we are going to go a bit of in the 24 as well. So December 27th, Manitoba invited 276 candidates. Apparently, they were not on a holiday. They were working. Good job, Manitoba. Other than that, all other provinces pretty much went off to sleep. 56 candidates among these were who had an express entry profile. Occupations were prioritized in this one, and the draw included healthcare professions like surgeons, physicians, nurses, and there was also bus drivers and restaurant managers. Interesting. News. Okay, that's what we are looking forward to. Parents and grandparents program has been paused for 2025. This is hot off the press. It came off yesterday, late yesterday. This appeared in Canada Official Gazette that they would be putting a pause on the new applications for parents and grandparents. Now, for people who do not know what's parents and grandparents stream, this stream is applicable in the sense of if you are a Canadian resident, if you are a permanent, excuse me, if you're a permanent resident or if you're a citizen in Canada, then you are eligible to sponsor your parents to become permanent residents in Canada. And because the number of people who are eligible and who wish to sponsor their parents, that number is always a big number in comparison to how many people can be considered in this intake. Therefore, Canada has opted for a lottery system. And the last time they allowed or they opened the intake for that pool where eligible sponsors could create an expression of interest, that was in 2020, just around the COVID period. And they have been using the same pool throughout. So they used the same pool in 2020, 21, 22, 23, 24. And this year, they have announced that they will not be opening up their applications for intake at all, which basically means the people who actually managed to get through to that pool of expression of interest in 2020 are the lucky ones, because most of them at some point of time should be looking forward to getting invited. Now, why have they done this, right? Because obviously there are going to be some very, very upset people out there who are looking forward to 2025's intake. But what's happened is, because this year the PR quotas have been slashed, as you all know, and with this PR quotas being slashed, there has been a chunk of parents, grandparents quota which was also slashed. So last year was about 34,000, I think, and this year has been reduced to roughly 24,000. So let's just quickly take a look. What was that number here? Let me see if I can share this screen. I should be able to. Anyways. No, I can't, because I have got something else there. So for this year, it's about 20,000, not even 24,000. For this year, the median target for parents, grandparents is about 20,500. And for last year, it was roughly 34,000. So what they're looking to do is they obviously don't want, why am I getting this? Yeah, so they don't want to exceed their targets. And therefore, this has been put on a pause. On the contrary, this year, they would only be processing the 2024 applications, and they're looking to cap that at 15,000 applications that were already taken from your 2024 intake. So that should have come as a big thump for a lot of people who are looking forward to this particular stream, which allowed them to bring their parents to Canada, and therefore family reunification. That was the main agenda there. At this point of time, the families, as in the dependent spouses and children, there is no specific impact on it. Of course, that number also took a hit under the quotas that were slashed, but not too much. But those numbers are also reduced for 2025. But of course, that is not the area that they're going to mess around too much with. But parents and grandparents had apparently been always on the back burner in the sense of low priority item. And therefore, the minute we have hit 2025, this is one of the streams that has now been put on a pause. Yes, the change of the government, it could be reopened. Again, depends on what the agenda of the new government is, or once we get into 2026, this might be reopened. But as of right now, the news is that in 2025, parents-grandparents program has now been put on a pause. IRCC has added new programs to postgraduate work permit eligible fields of study. This should be very interesting to those individuals who are looking to study in Canada. Now, as you know, that IRCC late last year had changed the postgraduate work permit criteria, and that was in effect from 1st of November. What happened was that before this, if you were studying in Canada in a DLI, which was postgraduate work permit eligible, then after completing a period of studies, you could get a postgraduate work permit for the duration of your studies, or in sometimes slightly longer as well. That basically included 1-year programs, 2-year diplomas, masters, of course, bachelor's degree, or any other degree program that you were completing in Canada. Then they changed that only professional bachelor's degrees, postgraduate programs, as well as the when I'm saying not postgraduate, the PhD programs as well as the master's degree are the only programs that are eligible for open work permits. Plus, only those programs, only those diploma, 1-year, 2-year diploma programs that are eligible, that have their field of study which has been listed as a priority occupation. So there's a big long list of CIP codes, where if your code appears on that list and that is the field of study that you are pursuing, 1-year, 2-year programs, only then would you be eligible for postgraduate work permits. Now, what was happening is, in this list, you primarily had 5 categories, right? And these 5 categories were agriculture, healthcare, STEM, trade, and transport. So if the field of your education was amongst these 5 categories and their CIP code appeared on that list of the priority occupations, then after completing your education, you would be eligible for a postgraduate work permit. Now, on the 17th of December, IRCC has further added one more category, and this is education. And this primarily is going to help all these courses, these codes have also been now added to the priority list. And therefore, if you are choosing to study as a Montessori teacher or even early childhood education, this was a big one. A lot of people who were studying early childhood education, they were feeling left out because they wouldn't have gotten their work permit. But now all these programs have also been included. So it's a hurrah for those people who are looking to continue with their education in these fields, especially in the field of education as well. What else is happening here? This is Canada's immigration changes lead to fewer international students in Windsor. Well, this was a report that was tabled by a local media release that said that because of the fewer number of international students, which is like a duh thing. I mean, of course, when the fewer number of international, when you're going to be putting a cap on the international students, obviously fewer number of international students will come. And obviously, it's going to make a big impact on the economic growth of that specific region or around that university or college. So already we are seeing, this one says local businesses like Sam's Pizzeria are reporting declining sales. Haha, I mean, I don't think anybody is really worried about the declining sales for Sam's Pizzeria at this point of time. They're more concerned about the overall impact that the high growth in immigration had created, and I don't think anybody is going to be sympathizing with the low sales for a pizzeria at this point of time. However, this has been impacting not only the local businesses in those universities areas, but that's understandable. Of course, it's going to make a difference. But there are lots of other businesses that feed off the fact that international students are there. Of course, the landlords are going to be really, shedding some tears of blood, I guess. But I don't think anybody is sympathizing with them either. But other than that, there are lots of other small businesses that also operate primarily feeding into the international student community. But not only that, it's the universities and colleges who are now facing a big problem because their money stream is drying up. If the international students are not coming, who are paying hefty international student fees, which is sometimes 4 to 5 to 6 times more than what a domestic student pays for the same course for the same duration, well, that well is drying up, or rather has already dried up. And those colleges who were dependent heavily, and trust me, there are some colleges who were depending because their intake was 95% international student and only 5% local domestic students. So those kind of institutions are really facing the brunt of this one. And the diploma mills have pretty much gone out of business in most cases. I'm not sure why they are still operating. I mean, there are some of them still operating, but I'm not sure why most of them are operating. If you see the businesses for sale category listing, you would see lots and lots of colleges are up for sale and with not that high a price anymore. But by and large, lots of public universities, lots of big name colleges are also bearing the brunt of this, because with their intake gone, their budgets are now being crunched, in the sense like they're being crushed, not crunched. And of course, lots and lots of professors, teachers are now looking at no growth in their salaries, and some of them might be looking to be culled as well in terms of not losing their jobs or being laid off. And yeah, so overall, big impact. And I think this would continue for some point of time. At some point of time, provinces would have to step in and add to the funding of those institutions if they want those institutions to, of course, continue. Because earlier, especially provinces like Ontario, they had withdrawn the funding from these colleges because they said, hey, you guys are making a lot of money from the international students anyways, why should we be giving you funding? Now with that gone, I guess the funding has to step back right in. What else have we got? Upcoming changes to spouse open work permits. I've already done a video on this. If you haven't seen it, please do. If you are an individual who's a worker in Canada, then you may get impacted with the spouse open work permit changes. Now, lots and lots of questions followed after so first, let me give you a background. What happened is in the year 2023, I think it was Sean Fraser. Yes, Sean Fraser then announced, before 2023, what used to happen was that if you were a worker in Canada, postgraduate work permit holder, open work permit holder, closed work permit holder, only if you were NOC 0AB or tier category 0123 were you eligible to get your spouse or an open work permit. And then came Sean Fraser, who said, we need more people to work in Canada. Therefore, they removed that criteria of NOC 0123. Therefore, NOC 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 were eligible to then come to Canada. I mean, if you were in Canada as a worker and working under tier category 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then your spouses were eligible to come to Canada on an open work permit. Now, this was under a public policy exemption. This public policy exemption, which came into effect on 30th of January 2023, is set to expire in January 2025. It was a 2-year public policy. And therefore, expect that once that policy expires, there is no way they are going to extend the policy. On the contrary, this is a document which has been received under the ATIP notes. And if I take you to the last page, this is it lists option 1 to 3. So this document is a document that has been prepared by the think tank operations department of IRCC and then recommended to the immigration minister for the minister's consent and approval. And here there is an option 3 which was suggested, and that has been approved. And let me show you what is option 3. Option 3 is here. Let me make this screen big so you can see this. This is the option 3. It says roll back work permit access for spouses of lower skilled temporary foreign workers and dependents, and further limit eligibility of spouses of foreign workers in management, professional, occupation, or shortage sector. So it says further limit eligibility, which basically means that not only tier category 4 and 5 will no longer be eligible. I'm assuming this will be effective 30th of January, if not earlier, of 2025. Not only will those people not be eligible to get the spouse's open work permit, but even tier category 0, 1, 2, 3, they may have further restrictions based on their occupations, based on their occupation code, or based on specific NOC codes. Only then specific NOC codes or the people who are on those occupations will be eligible to get their spouses on open work permit. Some of the some of the occupations that have been listed here. It says is that this approach would ensure that employers who rely highly specialized and globally mobile professions, for example, academia, research, transnational high growth corporations, remain competitive in attracting talent such as C-suite executives, scientists, engineers, lawyers, professors, technicians, and a broad range of construction workers. So, some occupations have been mentioned, obviously not all. Now, I do not know how these tier categories will be implemented. That is yet to be seen. But this is option number 3. And if I take you back to this one, and on this particular document, if you see the last page, Honorary Mark Miller has signed that document and clicked on option 3, which was recommended as having been approved. So this has already been approved. Now, obviously, this document has a lot of white areas, which basically you can see means that has been redacted, means we do not know what exactly was mentioned there, and therefore we can't see that. But what is going to happen now is that sometime in the month of January, you will have this announcement coming about the spouse open work permit changes. And I am afraid it's going to impact a lot of you out there. So if you are a person who is looking to apply for your spouse open work permit, and specifically if you are in tier category, not only 4 and 5, but I would also suggest for tier categories 2, 3, 4, 5, all of them, to start making this application, or ensure that this application is already submitted and in process before this lock-in date comes in, whereby the public policy will have expired. Therefore, you will no longer be eligible under tier category 4 and 5. Plus, there could be further changes. Also, earlier, if you were a temporary worker in Canada, then as long as you had a work permit valid for 6 months, you were eligible to sponsor your spouse on an open work permit. Now, it is being recommended, as you can see in yellow highlighted and in brackets recommended, that the work permit should be valid for at least 16 months. Now, that's going to be huge. Why? Because this takes away from those individuals. For example, if you have completed only 1 year program in Canada and you are going to receive 1 year of work permit in Canada, right? 1 year of postgraduate. Now, you guys are also going to get impacted, because regardless of your tier codes, if your work permit is not valid for 16 months, you will not be eligible to get a spouse open work permit. At this point of time, this is recommended. This has not been implemented. This is not in effect, but these are under option 3. And the document here very clearly states that this document has been approved under option 3. And therefore, the recommendation is, please submit your applications at the earliest. Otherwise, this could become a big issue for you guys. In this option 3, where it has been ticked and signed, it very clearly says that the work authorization should be valid for at least 16 months, and the rollback for work permit access and for spouses of high-skilled temporary foreign workers. All these changes, I'm sure, is going to impact a lot of people out there. So please, if you are going to be impacted, you may as well start making your changes now, or rather, you may as well start getting in your applications in now. Before I get to the changes, and that probably is the last slide, a lot of you have also been asking about this when the spouse open work permit is being discussed, that what happens to people who are extending. Now, I don't know, because that clarity is not available on this document. And that, in my opinion, under normal circumstances, and that's how IRCC has normally operated, extensions are allowed. So if you are already in Canada on a work permit and your spouse is extending their work permit, then as an extension, you may also be allowed to extend your work permit. That has happened in the past as well, with different changes that were coming. So I'm going to assume that if it is going to be an extension, that you would be allowed. However, if you were on an open work permit on the basis that the principal foreign national, in this case your spouse who's in Canada, was on a study permit. Now your spouse is going to apply for postgraduate work permit. You, as a worker in Canada or a spouse open work permit holder, will be applying for extension. This extension may not be applicable, okay? Because then the new changes will apply. Then your spouse who is going to be applying for postgraduate work permit holder should already be working at the time you apply for your open work permit. And in this case, these new employment-related changes would certainly make an impact. So therefore, if you are one of those people who is looking to make an application for spouse open work permit, please get that done ASAP. What else have I got? Now, changes. 2025, year of changes, at least from whatever little that we can take a peek into the crystal ball and see, okay, what's going to happen in 2025 in terms of changes. Spouse open work permit, I've just spoken to you about that. Grandparents applications have been, their intake has been paused, so that's not going to happen. Obviously, all of you already know by now, job offer points are to be removed. Now, that is another big area which has invited a lot of discussion, a lot of confusion, because the last information or directive that came from IRCC on their advisory said that job offers will no longer be eligible for points. It did not say specifically LMIA or LMIA exempt. It just said job offers. Now, job offer points, basically people who have an LMIA, they are also able to get. And people who are on LMIA exempt, if they complete 1 year of work experience, they are on a closed work permit, they are also eligible to get the same points, 50 points or 200 points, depending on the knock code of your job offer. In this kind of a situation, definitely, I'm not going to get into the debate of fair, unfair. I guess I've already gotten beaten up on that one on Twitter and otherwise. Whenever I say, well, this is not really fair to the genuine applicants, I get beaten up. That, do you think admin assistants, do you think Tim Hortons, do you think McDonald's and the people who are working over there need to get an LMIA and LMIA points? Fair point. No, definitely not. But by and large, those are not the only people who get the LMIAs. There are lots and lots and lots of other people who are in some specialized roles who do get an LMIA, and that comes as a big advantage to Canada and the Canadian labor market. However, not getting into that debate, the point here is that the job offer points are going to be removed, and a lot of people are worried that if they are on an LMIA exempt work permit, what is going to happen to those people? So at this point of time, the understanding is that it's going to be job offer points. IRCC has never come back and indicated whether it's LMIA or LMIA exempt. So at this point of time, the assumption should be that it's all job offer points. And I think that even if they wanted to allow one segment to get points, but the other segment not to get points, I think they might be hitting a roadblock as far as the express entry system is concerned. Now, the express entry system will give you the points under the under the job offer section, right? So if you are doing your express entry application, there is an arranged employment section. That is where you enter the information about your employment or job offer and the LMIA, and that's where the points are given. Now, I think IRCC is going to struggle with the changes within that particular section, and that could be one of the reasons whereby they would have to completely do away with the LMIA and the LMIA exempt, both of them, because of that specific challenge that they might have with that section. At least that's my opinion. But this change is going to be coming in spring 2025. Now, the problem with spring 2025 is that it goes on for 4 months. So you have from March 20 till June 20th, 2025. So March, April, May, June, 3 months, my bad, sorry. 3 months, 3 months of spring, that's what we have. And it could happen at any point of time in that duration. The date is not known. It has been left open. So until such time, at this point of time, yes, you can still claim, because along with this news, there is also a lot of speculation that will express entry draws continue or not continue. My opinion, the draws will continue, and I'll give you the reason why. So what happened is, and I'm just talking from precedents, right? What has happened in the past and what was happening at that point of time. You are all aware of the changes that happened with the knock code, right? The knock code was earlier 4 digits, and then it was changed to 5 digits. And that also required a lot of technical changes in the GCMS system as well as in the express entry system, right? They had to change the code in the back end. They had to sort of make the changes so that the system could adopt the new knock numbers, the knock changes, etc., etc. But they did not stop throughout the whole period of time while they were making the changes. The draws continued, and only once they were ready to implement those changes, that's when we had a big pause of, I think, a month or so, and then the system crashed after they did add those knock changes, and then we had a pause again after that for 3 weeks or 4 weeks, I think. So that obviously created a big ruckus in the sense of the draws, but they did not stop the draws while leading up to those changes. So they were doing all the changes at the back end. They were not implemented. Once they were ready to be implemented, that's when the draw pause happened. So I'm going to assume, again, it's an assumption, it's a speculation, because that's what we all like to do. I'm going to assume that the draws will continue, because whatever changes that have to be made into the system will be worked upon at the back end. Only when they are ready to implement these changes, which could be in March, April, May, that point of time, you might see a big pause in the draws while they are implementing the changes and running some test scenarios before it is reopened within the draws itself. So expect issues within the system, and with those issues means pause in the draws. So whenever these changes are implemented, and you can mark my words on that one, the draws will be paused. But for the time being, at least I don't think the draws will be paused or not. And I guess we will find out within a week or 2 weeks at most whether the draws will continue or not. I'm also going to assume and hope that while IRCC had reduced the numbers of their draws in November and December, I hope that the numbers will come up. Now, there was one ATIP note that, I don't have a copy of it right now. I will have to really go through it. But the last paragraph of the ATIP notes was suggestive that they would continue with the lower draw size until February. It was suggested. It wasn't something, but by that time, the immigration levels plan had not been announced. It had not been finalized. It was still being discussed. But that notes basically said that because the numbers are still being discussed, we could schedule the draws with the lower draw size, so that we can then change the draw size depending on what the actual numbers are, because they were expecting a larger cut within the federal high-skilled numbers as well. Therefore, they wanted to keep the draw size small, so that if that number is small, they could adjust it again. But since there is the numbers for federal high skill, which is coming under the express entry, that number has not reduced, that number has actually gone up. And because that number has gone up, I am going to assume that the draw size should get back to the regular size. But if they have already scheduled the draws based on that ATIP notes, then you could also see the lower draw size in Jan-Feb. So that is the only concern, that is the only worry, the draw size. But in my opinion, I think the express entry draws should continue. Now, what else? What other changes are we looking at? RCIP, FCIP has to be announced. Now, this was already covered in the Gazette of 14th of December. RCIP stands for Rural Community Immigration Pilot Program. They have changed, probably they're looking to change that name to RCIC, which is, I do not know how many times they have to do RCICs, right? You also have Regulated Canadian Immigration Consultant, and then you have RCIC, which is Rural Community Immigration Class, and then FCIC, which will be the French Community Immigration Class as well. So these two have to be announced, as in they've already made their appearance in the Gazette, which basically means they've already been approved, means all they need to do is they have to sort of announce that, yes, these are the communities, this is the criteria, these programs are now open, people can go ahead and apply. A lot of people have been waiting for almost now, 8 months for this programs to be relaunched. This would be a breather for a lot of them who will be able to then make an application. So this has to yet to be announced. So again, coming up for 2025. Another one, which is very interesting, because Mark Miller made a big hue and cry about it, saying that we really, really need the home support workers and child caregivers in Canada. And earlier, there was a requirement of work experience. Earlier, it was 2 years that the child caregivers, once they were approved, it was a dual or two-step application. You had to first come to Canada, gain Canadian work experience, only then you could apply for permanent residence. Earlier, it was 2 years, then it was reduced to 12 months, and then it was further going to be reduced. But then what they did is they completely removed the Canadian work experience requirements. Now, this program is also one of the most abused program, because a lot of times people use this program to bring their relatives, their brothers, their sisters, their friends to Canada as a permanent resident using this program. Because in this program, you could very easily, so there is no restriction. If it is your family member is also eligible to apply. Okay, as long as you can prove that they have the work experience of child caregiving or providing home support to an elderly or to a otherwise physically challenged or otherwise a challenged individual who might need that kind of support. So this program has to yet to be announced. What Mark Miller had announced and said that there will be no requirement of work experience in Canada. So if you're eligible, if you're approved, you land in Canada and bang, you become a permanent resident straight away, which, to be very honest, as a program is brilliant. I'm absolutely 100% certain that this will be misused. This is already being abused, like from donkeys of years, ever since this program has been in existence, at least from what I know. always, always, always 75 to 80% of this program is abused only to bring brothers, sisters, relatives into Canada. So I have no doubt this will further be looking to be abused as how it was. But again, this is also another program which is anticipated, which is expected to be announced probably by the first quarter, because this program has already been assigned an immigration levels quota target. I think it's about few thousand there, couple of thousand people who will be allowed here, and therefore this program also has to be announced. Then another one was a tier 4, tier 5 category pathway, right? Again, another one of Mark Miller's announcement, where he said that they need to really look at giving a pathway to individuals who are under tier category 4 or 5. Now, for some reason, and this is where it really, really pisses me off, because those individuals who make these Instagram reels and TikTok reels and TikTok videos, they will give all kinds of rubbish information without understanding the context. Now, it said new pathway being discussed or being worked upon for tier category 4 or 5. At no point of time did it suggest that tier 4, tier 5 will be in express entry. No. In order for tier 4, tier 5 to be included in express entry, there has to be a legislative change, because tier 4, the tier code eligibility is already mentioned in IRPA and IRPA. So if they have to make that change, it will require a very, very big change. So it was never supposed to be express entry. It was always supposed to be a separate pathway. Again, after that announcement, I think there was so much of thrashing that the government has got with the increasing number of temporary residents and permanent residents. I guess this particular one has been put on a shelf. I do not know if they will take it off the shelf and put it into implementation or not, but at this point of time, this is pretty much in obscurity, and we'll have to just wait and see if this tier 4, tier 5 category pathway actually comes into some life or form. Penalties for practitioners and individuals who are involved in misrepresentation and fraud. So Canada finally is doing something about deterring fraud at the root level. So individuals, whether it's immigration consultants, whether it's immigration lawyers, whether it's individuals, ghost consultants, unauthorized agents, illegal agents, if they are involved in Canada in any kind of fraud, immigration fraud, or trying to encourage or trying to induce or be the reason for misrepresentation, then there are some very heavy penalties that are being discussed, and hopefully they will be announced. That is something which I'm looking forward to, because you should chop the head off the problem instead of looking for band-aid solutions and trying to do this or that. Go to the try to hit the fraudsters where it hurts them the most, right? By announcing very heavy penalties, which they should also be able to recover, of course, and probably jail sentences, probably canceling the licenses, probably looking for some more harsher penalties. That is what is the need of the hour if you really, really want to curb the amount of fraud that is going on within the Canadian immigration. So really looking forward to this one, but that is also going to be hopefully be announced somewhere in 2025. Now, categories for 2025. This one is a very good one, right? I'll show you a document. I got it on Reddit. I got it on Twitter. I got it on email. I got it on WhatsApp. So this is a document which has been doing the rounds. I'm not sure if you can see it. Let me see if I can put it on full screen. Yes, I can. I'm sure a lot of you have already seen this document. This was doing the rounds on Twitter, on WhatsApp, on Reddit, on Facebook groups, on WhatsApp pages, everywhere. And this particular document is being portrayed as an email exchange between some members of operations department, economic operations department of IRCC, or some related department, who are discussing the changes that they wish to bring or that they wish to propose as far as 2025 is concerned in Canadian immigration. Now, trust me, this created a lot of hue and cry, in the sense, like, a lot of people were concerned, a lot of like, what the hell is going on, what is happening, and whether this is a genuine document or not. In my opinion, this is a fake document. Somebody out there has really gone to a lot of length and trying to create this kind of panic within people. Lots and lots of problems with this document. the dates are incorrect. So the person doesn't even understand what is fall and what is spring, and that the spring comes before the fall of the same year. That person has completely mixed that up. There is no TR to PR pathway, but in the end over here, it still talks about, in Canada, TR to PR pathway category type. There is no category type for TR to PR pathway. I do not know. And then it is talking about projected draws, and then the number of projected draws is way, way, way out. And it still talks about STEM occupations. And then it also talks about what kind of knock codes need to be removed from the categories. So trust me, it created a lot of panic. In my opinion, this document is a fake and should not be paid any attention to. So if you're looking at this kind of a document, please debunk it the minute you see it. Tell the person who is sharing it to delete it, because the more it gets spread, the more panic it creates. Now, coming back to what we were talking about, and that is to do with the update on the categories for 2025. Now, as far as the categories for 2025 is concerned, you should be able to get that update by February of, I was going to say next year, but February this year, because that would be after the first parliamentary sitting at the end of the January. So first week of February, you should be able to see the new categories for 2025. And if there is any change in any of the knock codes that are eligible or no longer eligible, all those changes you should be able to see, hopefully, by February 2025. And have I missed something? Did I miss something? If I did, please do comment below and let me know if I did miss something. Happy to take that into consideration as well. But this is pretty much what the changes are looking like. Of course, there will be many more as we move forward, because I'm sure there are plenty of things that are being discussed. There are plenty of things that are in the pipeline, which obviously we don't know of yet, as and how we do come to know of it. Of course, if you have subscribed to this channel, then you already know that you would be getting that firsthand as and how that happens. Other than that, yes, connect with us on social media platforms. We are everywhere. We are omnipresent as far as social media is concerned. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, of course. And if you're here, then do subscribe to the channel. Nothing would make me happier in order to continue and feed. Sometimes even I need a bit of motivation. So seeing those numbers going up is always, always nice. Hit the like button, share it with anybody else who you might think would gain some advantage or benefit from whatever has been discussed today. And one more time, we are an immigration company. I do this for bread and butter and sometimes jam. And so yes, if you are looking to hire an immigration consultant, then please drop us an email. We'll be very happy to give you a price quotation. That information is also available on our website. But yes, if you're looking for those services, immigration services, please, by all means, do consider us. And this is the link. If you wish to book an appointment, then please use this link to make an appointment for consultation one-on-one, so we can discuss and understand what your questions and queries are. Now, as I switch to the Q&A section, I am certain that I will not be able to complete all the questions. That is for sure. And therefore, by all means, once the video is done, please come back and post your questions in the comment section, so that I can, during the course of today and tomorrow, then come back and respond and reply to as many questions as possible. Just taking this one. Is the BCPNP International Graduate Stream open? Well, that was the indication given by BCPNP that it will be launched in January. They haven't made a formal announcement to say that now it is open, but I guess because of the holiday week, that might have been delayed. I expect to see that update coming from BCPNP hopefully by next week. So that is when you would know that International Graduate Stream changes for BCPNP are now in effect. All right, some questions here. Nothing here. I'm applying from India. I got my portal request, but about 50 days ago, where they ask you about color and height, I've been waiting for another update which has not arrived. How long before I hear from IRCC? If you're applying from India, there is no P1 request. So you've got it wrong. The P1 request comes only for those people who are applying from inside Canada and are in Canada and can confirm they're in Canada, whereby they would then get a portal request so that they can create their account in portal, upload their photograph, and then they become permanent residents while being inside Canada. If you've applied from outside Canada, then there is no portal request for you. What you got as a request is probably your passport request. So please read that document carefully, and using that document, please submit your passport with the VFS so that it can be sent for visa stamping. There will be no other email in terms of portal requests for you. Spouse open work permit rejected. GCMS says finance situation are insufficient and insufficient evidence of origin of funds. Should I prove above remarks for VV? VV, I'm assuming you are saying visit visa. And again, I don't understand your question. When you say, should I prove above remarks? Well, yes, you should. Whenever you are making any application for any temporary residence in Canada, funds should always be at the forefront. You should be able to establish that even if you do not find a job, then you would be able to sustain yourself, right? That's what your open work permit is all about. As far as visit visa is concerned, being able to demonstrate that you have sufficient funds is paramount. If you do not have sufficient funds, then you could be seen as a person who might want to come to Canada and start working illegally to sustain themselves. Therefore, funds and source of those funds, if they have been obtained within the last 4 or 5 months, is extremely important. Please do make sure you provide that. Ontario received under 444. Score has increased to 446 due to increase in experience. OINP is an assessment. Do I need to worry about this? Absolutely not. If your score has gone up or gone down after you've already submitted your application to Ontario, you need not worry. You don't have to do anything, and that's absolutely fine. On work permit in Canada, can we study a 8-month PT program? I do not know what you mean by PT program. Do you mean by personal training program? Or you are referring to part-time program? And while we do it, will our Canadian experience be counted for CEC? If you are on a work permit in Canada, then you cannot study until and unless you obtain a study permit if the duration of your study, full-time, part-time, is more than 6 months. So please do not take that kind of a chance if you are going to study. Now, the only time you might study is if this is an online, completely an online program, there is no in-person classes, there is nothing there at all, then yes, you might study. But if there is any kind of in-person classes, and if this program is for longer than 6 months, then you need a study permit. My CRS score is 480. I'm about to complete 6 months of work experience as a welder in India. Will leaving the job right after completing 6 months negatively impact my EE or hurt my chances? No, you can certainly leave your job. There is no problem. At this point of time, the requirement is of 6 months, though I am not in favor of 6 months of work experience. I don't think it adds any kind of value within the Canadian immigration process or the labor market at this point of time. But again, I'm not the one who decides these programs. So to answer your question, if you leave your job immediately after 6 months, does it impact your application in a negative manner? No, not at this point of time, because the requirement is for you to have 6 months of work experience. And if you have that, then you are eligible and you qualify for it. If I amend a study permit submitted before November 1 to add working conditions to it, will it affect my postgraduate work permit eligibility? My program is not on that list. So when you say you will amend a study permit, why will you amend? And if you're going to amend to add working conditions to it, if you have a study permit, you're already eligible to work 24 hours a week. So if you are amending an existing document, it does not get impacted with the new changes that were in effect from 1st of November. I received an ITA on December the 2nd. I got 2-year experience points at the 11th month. Should I wait until I finish 12 months? Absolutely. You have to wait. You cannot submit your application if you haven't completed the period of work for which you are claiming points. You must wait, and only after that should you submit your application. Factopia, thank you for the sticker. I worked from India for 1 month. Can I count this towards my 3 years of experience? I'm short by 1 month and my work permit expires, so I can't cover that 1 month. So now I can only show 2 years of experience only. No, you cannot, because you see, when you are short of work experience in Canada, that's Canadian experience. But you were working in India, and that's foreign work experience. So you're neither here nor there, right? And no, you cannot work in India for 1 month and then claim that to be the shortfall for your Canadian work experience. I'm afraid it doesn't work like that. Okay, SD. You're saying, as per a document of IRCC posted by Steven, stipend is not accepted as salary. In this case, should I ask my employer to change the word stipend to remuneration or salary. Will this be accepted? Yes. The document that you have seen on Stephen Muren's post about stipend, well, that is what has been discussed on the immigration representative portal, to answer the questions. By and large, even if your application or even if your documents mention stipend, but that stipend is indicated as you having been paid for your work experience, it's not a problem. The only time that stipend word becomes a problem when it is indicated that the stipend is being paid for you to cover your expenses. That is when that stipend cannot be accepted. But if your employer is willing to change that word stipend to remuneration or salary, bravo, get it done, and you don't have to be worried about this concern at all. I have been offered equity in my working company and I am in my studies. I wanted to know if I can accept it or not. Yeah, you can absolutely. Whatever you're being offered, that is not a problem. The situation is that as long as you are working off campus, you must comply with the study permit conditions, which is 24 hours per week. You cannot work for more than 24 hours per week. So whatever this company is, it doesn't matter if you have equity or not. The point is that you cannot work for 24 hours, more than 24 hours a week if it's off campus. Can I start working remotely for an Indian company to gain foreign work experience? I'm planning to leave current job in Canada and start working for an Indian company. Am I doing this right? Technically, yes, you can. Earlier, we had a lot of doubt and confusion about this, that can you do this, can you not do this? The thing is that the ministerial instructions which govern the express entry, they define the foreign experience as work experience gained outside Canada. Therefore, this continues to be conflict. And why is it a conflict, right? So you will show that this work experience is outside Canada. But when you're entering this information, you have to enter this information depending on where you physically are. And if you are going to show that you are in Canada, then the system automatically considers this as Canadian work experience, which is not the case. Therefore, the system has not been equipped, has not been designed to reflect remote work experience, which creates a big issue. Because in order to overcome that, you would then have to show that this work experience was gained in India. But you were not in India, you were in Canada, right? And that is where the big complexity arises. So technically, the way you're asking me, can you do it? Yes, you can. The presentation of this work experience and the explanation that goes with this, that is where the problem happens, and that is where the officer's discretion will apply. Because if the officer under section 25, which is under the qualifying work experience, if you can check up the ministerial instructions, section 24 and 25, that is where you have the information about what is the definition of work experience. And if the officer decides to apply strictly that definition, then I'm afraid they may not accept your work experience. But if you're asking is, can you do it? Technically, yes, you can. It's just how you will present it, how you will explain it, and how you will give your explanation in contradiction to section 24 and 25 of the ministerial instruction. So that's where this problem is. By mistake, my friend selected 2 or more certificate. His background is whatever. Does it count as misrepresentation? Where did he select? There is no place to select 2 or more certificates in an express entry profile. This 2 or more certificate selection is only in the calculator tool of CRS, and that is a calculator. Anybody can use it. So there is no place in the express entry profile where you can choose 2 or more certificates, right? So please don't get confused with this. And no, it doesn't count as misrepresentation because there is no option for you to choose this in the express entry profile. Can I apply for study permit if my visitor record application is still in progress and I have received a LOA from a university? Previous status was worker. Your application for study permit will be considered as outside Canada application. And the reason is that you are now maintaining your status as a visitor. You are no longer maintaining your status as a worker. Therefore, you do not get the advantage of making an inside Canada application. So yes, you can still submit your study permit application, but that would be treated as an outside Canada application. I'm amending because there is no working conditions. My study permit is just blank. Even if it is blank, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to have study permit conditions. To review your study permit conditions, you can always check the IRCC website. But as I answered earlier, if you're making any amendments, it should not get impacted with any changes that have come into effect from the 1st of November. My express entry profile has expired, so do I need to mention its number in my new profile? No, you don't, because it's a profile, it's not an application. Only and only when you have submitted an express entry application does it apply to you that have you ever applied to in express entry before. So applying here always means you have been invited, you submitted a complete application by paying the fee. That is what it means by have you made an application, have you submitted an application, or have you applied to express entry before. In your case, since it was only a profile that was created, you don't have to mention it. But even if you do mention it, it's not going to be a problem. So please don't worry too much about this. Wife is working in tier 4 part-time job in Bell since December. She is on study permit and we will apply for postgraduate work permit and my extension in about 5 to 10 days. Should we apply together or does she need a full-time job offer? You can definitely apply together, and if she's working and even if she has a part-time, even if she has a tier 4, tier 5, it doesn't matter. As of right now, you are eligible to apply for your open work permit even if you're applying together. Just ensure that when you do apply, you should add the employment letter from your spouse. That should list down the job roles and responsibilities, and you must provide at least 3 pay stubs. This is a requirement. If you don't, then that becomes a problem. But yes, you can still apply until the new changes have been implemented. We are a couple waiting for ECOPR, and if we apply for a bridge open work permit together, will the AOR be in both our names? No, it won't be. The AOR will always be in the name of the principal applicant. So, you're asking about the bridge open work permit. So if you're making 2 work permit applications, they will be in the individual names. Even if you create it in the same application, but you'll be creating 2 applications, so they will be in the individual names. You're referring about the confirmation for the work permit application. So yes, it will be in the specific names. Raghav says, I have submitted as machinist in skilled trade stream in OINP. Application is in DIP, which is decision in progress. After submission, got demoted as a worker and then terminated. Do I need to worry about my federal application? You got invited in the skilled trades team. Okay, all right, perfect. No, you don't have to worry about it. Nothing to do with informing them, nothing. You don't have to worry about it, because in the skilled trade stream you get invited based on your past work experience, which should be within the last 2 years, and what is happening with you currently or in future, because that stream is not reliant upon a job offer. It is not reliant upon you continuing to work, so it's not going to be a problem. Any chances that user support technician be included in the next draw? I don't know. Nobody knows what the next draw is going to look like, when it will happen, what knock codes will be included, and what scores will be. I mean, I hope it happens. The sooner it happens, a lot of people can heave a sigh of relief, but there is no way for me to speculate what kind of knock codes will be included. Had any serious disease or physical disorder. I had non-contagious TB in lymph node, got treated in Canada. Shall I say yes in EE application and explain? Yes, always stay on the clear, always stay on the safe side. You can say yes, you can explain. IRCC is simply going to ask you to redo your medicals once you do it, and once it is all clear, you don't have much to worry about there. Can I use my previous valid CELPIP result, or do I have to use the latest CELPIP in EE? You can use any CELPIP, any IELTS, any PT results, the one you took earlier, the one you took later, the one you had higher scores, the one you had lower scores, it doesn't matter, as long as it is valid on the day you submit your PR application. That is what matters. So it doesn't matter which CELPIP, which PT, which IELTS you use, it should just be valid. 487 chances in CEC after removal of LMI points. I don't know. There is no way for me to speculate, because nobody knows how many people are there in the pool with the LMI points and who's claiming what. When will the draws happen? What will be the draw size? How many invitations will be issued? How frequently they will conduct the draws? All of this will influence. So therefore, there is no way for me to say anything about the chances for anything. Can I gain remote work experience on a closed work permit? Can I gain remote foreign work experience? At one point of time, technically, you should be able to gain only one work experience. Can you gain remote foreign work experience? Yes, you can. I've just explained earlier how the presentation can be an issue. Technically, you can, but it's going to be a bit of a problem to do that. 1 year experience in non-healthcare in Canada, 6 months experience in healthcare in Canada. What should be my primary knock code to be eligible for CEC Health Draw? Your primary knock code does not matter for a category draw. You can choose either of the two. You want to play it safe and really not have to stress about it, then choose the healthcare knock code. But in any category draw, your primary knock code does not define whether you will get invited or not. The fact that you have 6 months of work experience in that knock code listed in your work history, that is what matters. So don't worry about the primary knock code. If you want, you can certainly mention it as your primary knock code because you're in an experience class, but it won't really matter. So don't worry about it. You did not address my full question. Could you please? I don't know what was your full question. I've already addressed your full question. You said I got my ITA based on 11 months, and I told you you should wait for 12 months. So I do not know what was the other part of your question. You should wait for 12 months. And if you have worked for 2 weeks paid leaves is counted. 2 weeks remote is not counted. What else is there? Yeah, so your full question was indeed responded to. Okay, last question before I scoot off. 2-year knock B experience in Canada, score is 492. Is it worth to get foreign 1-year experience to boost the points to 542? Postgraduate work permit is expiring in March. Also planning to gain foreign experience in family business. In my opinion, absolutely it does. Now with the LMIA points gone, there isn't much out there to bump up your points significantly. So if you can indeed get 1 year of foreign work experience to get those scores up, I would certainly do it. I don't see any harm in doing this. Nothing here. Well, that's basically all I had for you guys for today. Thank you so much for joining in. It has been lovely doing this again. And of course, we'll keep doing it each week. Until then, stay forever hopeful and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.